Great. And what are we thinking of this opening hand here?
Oh, actually, I think my Discord frozen. I can't actually see that.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah.
Um, well, hold on. Well, while I'm getting it adjusted for you, I'll tell you we've got 4 planes, a Mardu Woe Reaper, a Thalia's Lieutenant, and an Ossification.
Yeah, so it's always very interesting with these decks that like don't like since your deck your curve stops at like 2 essentially, having
Sure.
like the 4th land in the opening hand is kind of scary. On the other hand, it's extremely important that we do play 1-drop into 2-drop, and we do have a 1-drop in our like 1-drop 2-drop in our opening hand here. So
Sure.
these sort of hands are going to be a little bit depending on the matchup. If one of our basic lands was some sort of like land that had an ability, it would be much more interesting to keep. I think it is very fine to mulligan this. The Lieutenant is not going to be very important on
Sure. Now I
and yeah,
have I have started sharing my
yes,
screen. Can you see
I
it?
can see it now. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
great. What do you think of this hand?
Yeah. So this is like exactly what we want. Just like a bunch of stuff and exactly 2 lands here.
Okay, great. So we want to keep this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think if you want to think about like how you curve out here, so like you gotta go 1-drop, 2-drop, and then on turn 3, the best thing you can do is playing a 1-drop and a 2-drop as well.
Sure.
So I think we just want to get rid of our weakest 2-drop here, which is going to be the Precinct Captain.
Sure. No problem. And we unfortunately do not have the play.
That's okay. Because the opponent needs some Breeding Pool, which is one of the things we might want to see, but they have Llanowar Elf. Okay, so that's interesting. That is probably not one of the known decks.
Sure. So we can play the Boros Elite or the Recruitment Officer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so the Elite is not going to be able to attack with its Battalion effect until turn like 4 is the like
Sure.
earliest time we can attack with 3 creatures, so there's no reason to really play it out on turn 1.
Okay, so Recruitment Officer it is.
Yep.
Makes sense to me. So now next turn, are we wanting to lean on Thalia's Lieutenant, you think?
Yeah, so that's actually somewhat interesting. It's going to depend a little bit on what the opponent plays. It seems like they are playing some sort of maybe green devotion deck, splashing blue, but it seems like going to be very creature heavy. So it's not guaranteed that the lieutenant is actually going to disrupt our opponent.
Sure.
Um, there was a very fortunate time to draw the case
Yeah.
the cave. On the other hand, if it is going to disrupt the opponent at all, it would be if it's played out early enough.
Sure.
The advantage of playing out the lieutenant early, like you're gonna miss out on pumping out a bunch of your creatures, but instead you're gonna be able to have like one big lieutenant,
Sure.
which can be nice in this matchup because they're trying to play big creatures, and so you might prefer to have a slightly bigger lieutenant. But I think the fact that the opponent could, for instance, play cards like Oath of Nissa or
Yeah.
Kiora or something in their deck means that like I think it's just slightly safer to play at the Thalia now
No
and
problem.
see if we can slow them down a little bit because they're off to a very really fast start.
Yeah, they're off to a very fast start.
Our main trump card in this matchup is going to be the Brave the Elements, which can give all of our creatures protection from green, which essentially makes them unblockable. And so
Sure.
that's just going to try and be our game plan. We're going to try and slow down the game, build up the board, and see if we can draw the Brave the Elements.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
Ideally, we'd be able to run them over, but when they go Llanowar into Ogre Troll, they have such a good start that that's probably not going to happen realistically.
Yeah, that is a very strong start.
Okay, but at least that turn 3 is not too scary, just setting up for potentially a scary turn 4 here.
Okay, now do we just want to play the Elite and then the Lieutenant?
We definitely want to play both creatures here. So there's something like very interesting when playing these, when playing with the lieutenant, is which order you're supposed to play your cards in.
Sure.
Essentially, you can choose between having a plus counter on the elite or on the lieutenant,
Right.
and whichever one is better, like it's going to depend on how exactly like we expect the power toughness to line up. So because the issue is here that like we're just gonna make our things 3 power. The Thalia is gonna be 3 power, and the officer is gonna be 3 power. So like that's not very impressive. We really want to get to 4 power.
Sure.
The only way to get to 4 power is to draw a second lieutenant. And so if we draw a second lieutenant, the elite would already go to 4, counting its battalion effect.
Oh,
And
sure.
the lieutenant itself would get 2 counters, one from its own trigger and one from the other lieutenant trigger. So I think we actually want the counter on the lieutenant, banking on drawing a second lieutenant so we can have four things with 4 power.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's like some of the very like careful manipulation of counters that comes up a lot with this deck. Of course, we'd have to get a little bit lucky to get the lieutenant, but the recruitment officer can try and look for it. That's a very important ability that we shouldn't forget about.
Yes. The look for a creature,
the
4-mana thing. Yeah, it's really really interesting to hear you talk about this stuff and just like the intricacies of playing a deck that I think a lot of people tend to talk about decks like this and like all you do is turn your creatures sideways or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also like interesting with these sorts of decks because they're like fundamentally underpowered. It becomes even more important that you make as many decisions as possible correctly, because just like one misstep could like make the whole house of cards crumble.
Yeah.
And once again, we're actually presented with a really important decision here.
Right.
Luminarch Aspirant is one of the more tricky cards to play in the deck because it gives you so many options on like where to put the counter each turn, and really rewards thinking about how your creatures are going to line up against the opponent's creatures, especially over multiple turns.
But are we definitely playing it?
Well, that's the other question though, because you could also be activating the officer. So if you play the Aspirant here, you can get one really good attack, which is to pump the Thalia and attack for 4. But my issue with this line is that it doesn't really grow the game like super quickly. It's like it is just 4 damage, and I think we need a bigger push than that. So I'm very tempted to just pass and activate the officer here. Try and see if we can find that second lieutenant so we can actually get a big attack next turn.
We can do this at instant speed.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so we can just hold off on that.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a little bit unfortunate. We might also draw an ossification for the turn that also would like make our attack really good. So that's not a good payoff.
Yeah, it seems like a good way to deal with some of this.
So another thing to think about is that the opponent does have 2 cards in hand that they just passed here. I'm guessing that they have a 7-drop in hand, which is very scary.
That is very scary.
We can hope that they just have 2 lands. Maybe they're playing the new Leyline of the Guild Pact. That would be a nice card for them to have drawn. Good thing that you're highlighting that creature land here. In these aggro decks, the man lands, as we tend to call them, the creature lands, end up being like quite a useful tool for battling through a lot of things here. We're just waiting for the opponent, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. They're okay. Here we go. Yeah, it seems like the flying could be relevant.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, the deck does have a lot of reach creatures, so it's not super likely to come up, but maybe.
Well, we're pretty close to being able to activate
it. Yeah, pretty like likely to be able to activate it, yeah. So that's at least something. But here is maybe the scariest 7-drop.
Ooh.
I was afraid of.
Yeah, there's a Storm the Festival.
Right, yeah, because the Thalia makes that cost 1 more. That makes a lot of sense.
Oh, sure.
This would be a card they have. Luckily, Storm the Festival lets you only look at the top 5 cards. So sometimes it bricks or like doesn't find something super interesting, and that's kind of what we're banking on right here.
Wolvenwald, Oddity, and Leyline of the Guild Pact.
All right, so now all their things are all colors, but the Leyline doesn't actually do anything for them unless they have the card Nykthos, which they haven't found yet, so that's at least something. And both our creatures are 4/4s, and we're already trying to break through 4 power, so or 4 toughness.
All right, so we're happy to just activate our recruitment officer.
Yeah, and see if we can find.
There's a lieutenant.
There it is. Yep.
Wow, we did it.
We did it.
And now we can play a lieutenant and the aspirant.
Yes. Oh, and this other card we drew here is also like quite a big pump spell, which could have also been a good draw. But yeah, I think we absolutely just play out both our lieutenant and our aspirant here.
You think in that order?
Yes. In general, the aspirant doesn't really tend to get much in combat, so it needs to counter the least. And now we really want to like make sure that the opponent can't trade with our things when we think about where to put the counter from the aspirant. So where would you intuitively put it with that knowledge?
With that knowledge, I would say, oh, that's tricky. Because you could put it on Thalia, but then she
But Thalia's already first
she's
strike.
she's already doing it. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
already. It doesn't save her from the double block. Thalia's lieutenant is already a 5/5. Oh, I guess the Boros elite is going to get +2/+2.
Yes,
so getting that up
that
to
one you can push that out of range.
+1,
You can't save the recruitment officer because it's just going to be pushed to 4 sharpness.
Right.
So yeah, if you put the count on the Boros elite, the opponent can maximum kill one of your creatures here in combat, and that's generally how you want to like line it up with this deck. You can see how like our creatures are way bigger than they have any right to be, and we're bashing through these big green bodies with our 1 and 2 mana cards.
So we need to attack with at least 3. So these 3 are definitely going in. Are we also getting in with the recruitment officer?
Yeah, because if you don't get in with that, the opponent can double block something.
Oh, sure.
And yeah, so might as well like offer them this trade.
All right, this feels like a pretty good attack.
Yeah, this lined up nicely. I'm really happy we hit the lieutenant off that.
Yeah, that was nice.
So
that was really nice.
It wasn't all this planning for nothing.
Yeah, just like we drew it up. All right, so they're gonna lose the old growth troll.
Yep, which makes sense because that gives them extra mana. But they're still not able to flash back their festival here. They probably have one in hand though, so I mean they're gonna have a lot of blockers next turn. Maybe we can just win with the flyer if they don't find a reach creature.
Sure. So, yeah, because then a land off the top just does it.
And we also like the Intrepid Adversary is also another way to buff our team here, so we can have a bunch of things that are going to be closing in on lethal.
Sure. Just like we drew it up.
Sadly, we don't quite have the setup where all 5 of our creatures are lethal no matter what we draw.
Sure.
That would have been beautiful. The aspirant can at most get to 3 power unless we draw the land, at which point they might die anyway. But maybe that is still good enough. But if you can like line it up so that everything's lethal, it makes it much harder for the opponent to actually stay alive.
Sure. So hello, Mason. You were right. Simon's an aggro genius. All right, what are we doing? Whoa.
Oh, new card.
Enters the battlefield, add 1 mana of any color. When another creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield, draw a card. You can plot it. Okay. Very interesting.
Yeah, at least the good thing is here, like they're gonna get a little bit of value, but I don't think we care too much about that.
Sure.
I am very curious about what this blue splash is for. It might just be counterspells in the sideboard.
Sure, that makes sense.
I've seen that before. Like now that Karn the Great Creator has been banned from Pioneer for a little while now, the sideboards of these green decks have kind of opened up. It's not like you can easily find 15 great sideboard cards in only green. So it makes sense that you branch out a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, very interested to see. Because this has also got to be tricky for them, because if they want mana from these elves, they cannot jump.
Yeah, absolutely. So they might be in a bit of a bind here. I guess they can't even sacrifice the Ogre's Troll land because they already tapped it. But it also makes a tapped troll, so that doesn't actually matter.
Sure. Okay.
So yeah, but I guess the question is like, are they gonna cast something or just pass and make sure they have an extra blocker up? And that is exactly what they elect to do here. So let's see what we draw. We might have lethal.
Spellbook Vendor.
Interesting. Yeah, that's funny. So actually, if we had played the no, yeah, that still wouldn't have mattered. I was thinking if you played the lieutenant and the aspirant in the other order last turn, it might have made a difference. But Yeah, it seems like we can't quite get lethal here.
Sure.
Because we can only push this, our smallest creature up to 3/3, and that's the only creature that's getting through. So instead, what we're gonna try and do is just like make sure that like we retain, like we kill as much of their board as possible and retain most of our board.
Okay. Sure.
So
So does
instead,
that mean it's an adversary line so we can pump everybody?
I think actually it might just be playing out the adversary and playing out the spellbook vendor.
Sure.
Because that way you can push your lieutenant to 5 toughness.
Okay, yeah. And we have the 1 to pay for vendor.
And so that means that like if all your creatures like can't get killed by theirs in combat, like you can just like everything can just survive combat, which is nice.
Sure. And then does it matter? I guess we put the +1/+1 on Thalia's lieutenant.
Yeah, exactly. And then the you can put the scry on the Luminarch. And the Luminarch is going to be safe to attack with here because you have 4 other lethal things. So
Sure.
it doesn't matter that this one is too small.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Spellbook Vendor and Luminarch Aspirant are very similar cards. The Vendor does require you to pay each time, and you can't stack multiple auras on the same thing because they are rolls.
Sure, yeah.
But the upside is that it doesn't let you scry, which is actually very helpful in these white creature decks. It's kind of I think an underrated card.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be valuable. Like, it seems like you probably get to this position a lot where you've just played out all your cards, and so.
Yeah, and you're trying to find like that extra lieutenant or that ossification or brave the elements.
Yeah, that seems like it could be really good. Okay, and then this one, we'd love to pay 1, and then put it here.
Mm-hmm.
Then we just swing all.
Yep. We'll see if the opponent has some sort of a instant speed trick. Hopefully not.
1.
But yeah, it's definitely a very nice showcase of the deck here.
Yeah, no joke. Especially for being like a $1 deck, more or less.
Yeah.
Alright, let's take our little scry. Alright, it's a plains that does unlock
We actually kind of want the
thing.
plains.
Yeah.
If the opponent has some way to sweep the board here, I mean, I imagine they can't, but if they do, it would be nice to be able to just kill them with the caves.
So you just want to leave us on top?
Yeah.
Nice. Alright, cool.
I generally just love to put my opponent in these spots where, like, essentially you play the game for them. They have, like, no moves here. The only thing they can do is put 4 things in front of your 4 big things. And, like, everything dies. And they don't get to, like, trade with anything. So you essentially, like, force their plays. This is a spot you can put the opponent in when you put them at a very low life total. You can, like, make them, like, put them in a spot where they're just, like, forced to do a certain thing that's very bad for them. Otherwise they die. So it lets you attack with things that normally wouldn't be able to attack. It like removes the ability for them to double block on anything.
Right.
Just generally plays out very nicely. They might have something here if they're considering not blocking with the their last creature here. So I mean it could be, I don't know, they might have like a Tavera or something. They don't quite have enough mana to transform the Ulvenwald Oddity. That would have been a tricky thing to look out for.
Sure.
Okay, so they're doing nothing here. So it means that they do have something, yeah. Maybe it's like an Otavera to bounce our Thalia's Lieutenant.
Maybe.
Or Archmage's Charm to fight. Actually, would be pretty brutal, yeah, because they could get +1/+1 to the
Wolvenwald Oddity.
Oh, right, yeah, and then fight. Okay, so actually, if we'd been really smart, and I thought about that card, should have put a counter on the Thalia to make sure this couldn't happen. But yeah, I
Sure.
did forget about the existence of this one.
For sure. All right, got us a little bit on that one. That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. We're luckily not dying. So, but Athalia is dead. And if they draw Nykthos, they can actually flashback the Storm the Festival, and like who knows what will happen.
Sure. Now all we can do is let them do their thing. And we know that we're drawing a plane, so we'll have a flyer that we can swing in with.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good one to keep in mind for the next games.
The charm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense that they play it because it's a way for them to search up the Nykthos as well. So it's like pretty good in their deck. Ooh, they can really go off here.
A second one.
I guess they're not really getting super far. Like they're getting a mana and a card.
Yeah.
It's not very scary here. Except of course, if they do draw the Nykthos, they're gonna make a ton of mana.
Sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
11, yeah, and they can use the Sunken Citadels to pay for it, and then tap. So that's 14 mana if they drew a Nykthos here. So yeah.
Well, we won our first game, which is amazing. Let's talk about sideboarding.
Yes. So mono green is generally one of our better matchups. Again, the best card is like the Brave the Elements that we can play towards. On the draw, I think it's really important to be able to clear their mana dorks. So I think Portable Hole becomes like quite important for that reason.
Okay.
And you would bought in, I think, maybe not all 4 copies, depending on like what we have to take out. And then the other card I think is really good here is going to be the Banisher Priest. Just getting rid of their Olgolf Troll. They don't have that many ways to fight back. They do have the Charm, of course, which we're going to look out for. And what we might want to cut here would be like some of the weaker, slower cards. You can definitely shave a Thalia because like drawing 2 of those can be like, yeah, it's like doesn't disrupt them that much. You can like cut a Precinct Captain maybe. That's like at the bottom of the 2 drops.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
We have 3 more cuts to make.
Yeah, so maybe you cut like a Spellbook Vendor.
Sure.
And the some of the other one of 2 drops there. Usually fine to cut. You can also like shave some 1 drops. You don't want to shave too many, but like for instance, the Shoulder of the Pantheon is just like gonna be a vanilla 2/1, and it's not gonna be very impressive. Yeah, the Sun Gold Sentinel is actually maybe that one can attack. You can name a color, and that color can't block, right? Is that how it works?
Gains hexproof from that color and can't be blocked by it. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that one's actually pretty good. Yeah, so let's just cut the 2 soldiers, and yeah, I think there we have it.
All right, great. All right, 1, 2 lands. Portable Hole.
Yeah, I mean, this is ideal. Again, just having exactly 2 lands and a bunch of gas is what we want.
Sure. So if they play a mana dork, we're
you're just gonna like have to like take it out with a Portable Hole. It's like, you know, ideally you would have like wanted to like be able to develop, but I can't afford to. Okay, so the Leyline is again only scary if they have Nykthos, but they do have like a lot of ways to find a Nykthos.
Sure. All right, so we'll get rid of this guy. We got another Portable Hole.
All right, yeah, so that's like kind of the reason why we maybe didn't want to have all 4 in our deck.
We brought in 3.
Yeah, you only brought in 3. Yeah, that's like, but I just want to exemplify. Just like you can see how drawing the second one actually is like really awkward.
Yeah.
It could be very good though if like they have a second elf here. They might like sometimes they keep 1-landers with 2 elves. Then
sure,
very good. Like a Wolfwillow Haven is something else that it can grab. Okay, so them playing Bosager here is actually a little bit of a tell.
Okay.
Because if they had a land here, like if they could have just Boseju'd our Portable Hole to get back their elf.
Sure.
So they probably don't have another land.
So 3 cards, they're all gas.
Yeah. That's my guess. They could also have a Nykthos, maybe. No, then it would still like kill the Portable Hole. So yeah, the best thing we can do here is just try and develop.
Okay. So play a couple 1/1s?
Yeah, exactly. I think you get more to your lieutenant that way. So
Sure.
I would just play a couple 1/1s, 2/1s. The Boros Elite is not going to be able to attack yet, so I don't think we play it now.
Sure. So just play the Woe Reaper and then play the Bodyguard.
Yeah, and then the Bodyguard. The Bodyguard, like, it's nice to play that with anything else on the table,
Sure.
but usually you shouldn't overvalue stability too much.
Sure.
It can be very good at protecting stuff like Thalia in certain spots, but it's also like you don't want to give up too much to set that up, because there's a lot of ways that the opponent can get around that or ignore it.
Makes sense. All right, here we go. Bodyguard. Okay.
Right, that looks good to me. So yeah, let's hope that they miss the land drop here. That would be a very easy way to get ahead.
Yeah, that would be ideal.
Yeah, and it seems like my read was correct.
Oh.
Yeah, and we even drew a third land here. So like, it's kind of like interesting with a deck like this that you might think that since the curve ends at 2, you don't really want the third land. But the third land is very valuable in a lot of spots, because it's like when you are allowed to double spell on turn 3 and your deck really starts to pop off, which is exactly what we're gonna do here.
Sure. So, given that we want, like, 4 is kind of the magic number, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean we want to play Boros Elite and then Lieutenant? Or do we still want to just try and build Lieutenant up as quickly as possible?
No, actually, you want to do the... if you draw another land, your Intrepid Adversary is going to be a human that pumps the adversary for 1 and then like pump everything for 1 as well.
Sure.
So it's the same thing as I explained last game with the Elite already being pumped to 4 by your other pump effect.
Sure.
So I think you do want to play the Lieutenant first and then the Boros Elite. And yeah, then everything would be able to attack through an Ogre Troll next turn. Or attack into it, at least.
Right. Then we can attack with these guys.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that was fun, but we definitely wouldn't mind that they draw land.
Right. We also wouldn't mind if they didn't.
Yeah, that would be nice.
They shocked it in though, doing our job for us. All right, there's
that does help. Especially and now we draw our own land. And actually, yeah, so even if they didn't have a shock land, we would have had like everything with exactly 4 power, like we drew it up. It means that we just killed him at from 12 life.
All right, great. So we get to do exactly what we talked about.
Play the adversary.
This.
Pump up the squad.
Go. Done. 1 paid. Everyone's pumped up. Lieutenant's pumped up. Huge. Nice.
All right, that was a very clean and beautiful win.
That was very clean and beautiful, and with our starter deck, no less. We haven't even upgraded this bad boy yet.
Nope.